Good day, everyone. My name is Johari Limbona, and I will be your reporter for Chapter 17, the last chapter of our textbook, and it is entitled The Musical. Before I begin, I want you to think about the last time a song made you feel something deeply. Maybe it gave you goosebumps, made you cry, or made you want to get up and dance. That is exactly what the musical, as a theatrical form, is designed to do. It takes human emotion and turns it into something bigger, into song, into dance, into spectacle. Today, we are going to explore where the musical came from, how it evolved, who shaped it, and why it continues to be one of the most powerful forms of theater in the world. So, what exactly is a musical? A musical is a form of theatrical performance that combines three key elements, such as dialogue, which is the spoken part of the story, music, and dance. Together, these elements tell a story in a way that no single element could do on its own. There are three main components of every musical. First is the book, also called the libretto, which is the script or the story. Second is the music, the actual songs and melodies. And third are the lyrics, the words that are sung, often poetry set to music. Creating a musical is highly collaborative process. It typically involves a book, writer, a composer, a lyrics, a director, and a choreographer, all working together toward a unified vision. One of the most fascinating things about musical is its core idea. Characters break into song at moments when their emotions are simply too powerful for ordinary words. When you love someone so much, you cannot just say it, you sing it. The musical did not appear overnight. It grew out of several popular entertainment traditions in 19th century America. In the 1850s, minstrel shows and burlesque performances were dominant. These were variety style entertainments mixing comedy, song, and parody, not always in ways we would find acceptable today, but they were extremely popular at that time. Then, in 1866, a production called The Black Crook is often cited as the first American musical. It was an accidental combination of a melodrama and a French ballet troupe, and audiences loved the spectacle. By the 1890s, European operetta began influencing American stages, and vaudeville, a variety show format, was bringing entertainment to mass audiences across the country. A major turning point came in 1927 with Showboat by Jerome Kern. For the first time, a musical tackled serious social themes like racial discrimination within its story. But perhaps the most defining moment came in 1943 when Rogers and Hammerstein premiered Oklahoma, the show that would change everything. In Oklahoma, every song, every dance number existed to advance the story. This became known as the integrated musical. The period from 1943 through the 1960s is widely regarded as the golden age of musicals, a time of extraordinary creativity on Broadway. Oklahoma itself ran for over 2,000 performances. It showed the world that musicals could be both commercially successful and artistically serious. Carousel, which followed in 1945, pushed even further, introducing the concept of the soliloquy, a song where a character reflects deeply on their inner life. Annie Get Your Gun gave audiences the unforgettable anthem, There's No Business Like Show Business, while Guys and Dolls in 1950 captured the wit and energy of New York City life. Then came West Side Story in 1957, a collaboration between composer Leonard Bernstein and lyricist Stephen Sondheim, which brought urban drama and social conflict into the heart of the musical form. And Gypsy in 1959 gave us the archetype of the star musical, built around a towering central performance exploring ambition, family, and the cost of chasing a dream. These shows did not just entertain, they asked difficult questions about human nature and society. And they did it through a dance. They did it through songs. No history of the musical would be complete without acknowledging the extraordinary people who shaped it. Rogers and Hammerstein are perhaps the most iconic partnership in musical theater history. Together, they wrote Oklahoma, Carousel, South Pacific, The King and I, and The Sound of Music. These shows are still performed around the world today. Stephen Sondheim is considered by many to be the greatest lyricist and one of the greatest composers in Broadway history. His shows like Company, Sweeney, Todd, and Into the Woods are known for their complexity, wit, and emotional depth. Leonard Bernstein brought the energy of classical music and jazz to the Broadway stage. His most celebrated work, West Side Story, remains one of the most performed musicals in the world. Bob Fosse revolutionized choreography, creating a distinctly stylized jazz-influenced movement vocabulary that defined shows like Chicago and Cabaret. Andrew Lloyd Webber brought the musical into the era of the mega musical with Cats, Evita, and the Pantheon of the Opera, the longest running show in Broadway history. And of course, Jerome Kern, though earlier in the timeline, deserves recognition as the pioneer who first showed the musicals could have something serious and meaningful to say. Now, let us look more closely at how a musical is built, its structured components. The book is the foundation, it is the spoken dialogue and the dramatic structure that holds everything together. Without a strong book, no amount of great songs can save a show. Second, the music. The actual melodies and songs carries the emotional weight. A good musical song does not just entertain. It reveals character, advances plot, or expresses something the character cannot say in words. Third, the lyrics are the poetry set to music. Writing good lyrics is extraordinarily difficult. They must scan to a melody, rhyme naturally, and still sound like something a real human being might say. Fourth is the choreography. The dance is not just decoration. In the hands of a great choreographer, dance sequences express what words and music together still cannot fully capture. And finally, design. The sets, costumes, lighting, and sound creates the world in which the story lives. A great design can transport an audience instantly to another time and place. All of these five elements must work together seamlessly. When they do, the result is a piece of theater that can feel almost magical. The musical is not a single fixed form, it has many varieties. Let me walk you through the major types. The book musical is the most common form. It tells a story through a combination of dialogue and song. Think West Side Story or Hamilton. Every song serves the narrative. The review is essentially the opposite. It has no unifying story. Instead, it is a collection of songs, sketches, and dances. The classic example is the Ziegfeld Follies. The concept musical is organized around a central idea or theme rather than a linear plot. Stephen Sondheim's Company and Michael Bennett's A Chorus Line are prime examples. The operetta or opera influenced musical draws heavily from classical opera traditions with a more singing style. Andrew Lloyd Webber's work often fits here. The jukebox musical builds its story around pre-existing songs. Mamma Mia uses ABA songs. Beautiful tells the story of Carole King. And the film musical translates the story to cinema, from classic Hollywood like Singing in the Rain to modern films like La La Land. The musical did not stop evolving after the Golden Age. From the 1970s onward, the form kept reinventing itself. A chorus line in 1975 turned the spotlight on the performers themselves, a group of dancers auditioning for a show. It was a meta-theatrical, deeply human, and won 9 Tony Awards. Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats in 1981 became one of the longest running shows in theater history, and Les Miserables in 1985 introduced the true song mega musical to Broadway, a show with almost no spoken dialogue at all. Rent in 1996 updated Puccini's La Boheme for a new generation, using rock music to speak directly to the experiences of young people in New York City. Weck in 2003 reimagined the world of The Wizard of Oz and become one of the highest grossing musicals of all time. And then there is Hamilton, Lin Manuel Miranda's 2015 masterpiece, which told the story of America's founding fathers through hip hop, R&B, and rap. It transformed the cultural reach of the musical and introduced the art of form to an entirely new generation. Students often ask, what is the difference between a musical and an opera? They can seem similar from the outside. Both involve singers performing on a stage, but there are important distinctions. In musical theater, performers typically mix spoken dialogue with song. In opera, the entire work is sung through there is a little or no spoken dialogue. Musical theater voices are almost always amplified with microphones, especially on Broadway. Opera singers, by contrast, are trained to project their unamplified voices to fill enormous opera houses. In terms of themes, musical theater tends toward more accessible, popular subject matter, while opera often draws from classical mythology, history, or tragedy. Dance is central to musical theater. Choreography is a major artistic element. In most opera, dance is secondary or absent entirely. And in terms of context, musical theater is primarily a commercial art form. You find it on Broadway, in touring productions in community theaters, while opera lives opera houses and is rooted in conservatory training. That said, the line between them is not always clear. Shows like Phantom of the Opera or Les Miserables borrow heavily from operatic traditions, and many people debate which category they belong to. So let us bring everything together with 6 key takeaways from chapter 17, the musical. First, the musical is a uniquely American art form, one that blends a book, music, and lyrics into a unified theatrical experience. Second, its roots go back to 19th century entertainments like minstrelsy, operetta, and vaudeville, diverse traditions that eventually merge into what we know today. Third, Rogers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma in 1943 defined the integrated musical, establishing the standard that songs must serve the story. Fourth, the golden age of the 1940s through 1960s produced the great classics of the canon, shows that are still produced and loved around the world. Fifth, contemporary musicals continue to push boundaries, incorporating rock, hip hop, and global influences to reach new audiences. And sixth, at its heart, the musical answers a simple but profound question. What happens when emotion is too big for words? The answer is you sing. So that concludes my report on chapter 17, the musical. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to answer your questions.